Okay, tell us your name, how long you've been in Windsor.
All right. Hi, my name's Agnes Pier. I moved to Windsor in 1971. I raised all my children here. I lived on Route 159 on Windsor Avenue, and then my entire life here except for 7 short years when we first moved into town. All my kids went through school here. I After I walked away from corporate America, after 20 years, I became town clerk. And while I was town clerk, I received a very interesting story from Dan Mack that I think it's very important that we preserve. Dan Mack was a local doctor here and basically delivered most of the babies in town. He was an obstetrician, and we loved Dan Mack. In his later years, after he retired, what he did was he went into painting. Now, his family was one of the major brickyards in the town of Windsor. At one point in time, we had 47 brickyards in the town of Windsor. Mack Brickyard was the one that was right down on Mack Street. The story I want to tell about the Mack Brickyard, though, has to do with the town hall. What Dan did was Dan painted an entire painting of the brickyard in 3 panels. He donated these to the town hall. They are in the first foyer of the town hall. We had a reception for him. When we had a reception for him, he and I were standing together afterwards, and he was telling me, I have a story that I want to relate to you that most people don't know because it was a big mistake and nobody realized it. At the point in time that the town hall was built, the town planner and the town engineer got together and determined exactly how many bricks they needed for this building. They wanted to have it all done by Mack Bricks. So they went to the Mack Brickyard, they made the order. Now this was back in 1960s, the early 1960s, 61, 62, something like that. And the Mack Brickyard at that point in time was going out of business. I don't know whether this was the last order, but it was probably the last biggest order that they were having. So they made their order, they did it, they started building the building. As they got going and they were getting up through it, they realized they made a calculation problem. And they were 2 feet short of brick. They were 2 feet short of brick for the top of the town hall. Dan looked at me and he said, yep, they made one big mistake. So they didn't know what to do. So they decided to go back to the brickyard. They went to Dan's brother, who was running the brickyard at the time. And they said, we made a mistake, we're sorry, but we're short 2 feet of brick. And he said, well, we're shutting down. We aren't making any brick. And they said, well, what are we going to do? And he said, so my brother sat there and thought for a few minutes, and he said, whoa, wait a minute, we're shutting down. Now, the Mack Brickyard, and if you go to Town Hall and you look at the pictures, if you go to Carmen Funeral Home, you also see him at Carmen Funeral Home. But if you go to the Town Hall and you look at the pictures, you can see that they had these large buildings that were the kilns. So his brother said, wait a minute, I know what we do. Because those kilns are built on 3 feet of brick and then sand. So what they did was they tore down the building, they uncovered all that brick, and that brick on the bottom of those kilns were the last 2 feet of Town Hall. So now we've ended up putting that away for posterity. Thanks, everybody.
That's wonderful. So is it like the 2 top feet? Like the 2
2
all
top
the way
feet.
around, all the way
The
around?
2 top feet.
Great.
Isn't that an interesting story?
That is great.
Yes, and Dan's not here anymore, so we won't. But if you want to see what the Mack Brickyard looks like, and actually on our photos,
Yeah.
we have a Mack brick, and you can see their name on it, and you can see how they actually made the bricks themselves. So brick building was very, very big in this town. Another interesting story about bricks, and then I'll stop, is my husband and I bought a house, 1788 house on Windsor Avenue. It's 1006 and 1004 Windsor Avenue. So Bob Silliman, excuse me, this is terrible. Bob Silliman happens to be the executive director of the Historical Society. Sorry, yes, it's terrible. Of the Historical Society. And he's writing an article and doing research on the brickyards in Windsor. He comes to find out that there was a brickyard in Windsor that supplied all of the bricks for the Mark Twain house. So he wants to know where the owners were. He finds out who the owners were, Walter Willard Loomis. So he's going all up and down Windsor Avenue trying to determine who it was, because there are Queen Anne houses. So he's sure they're there. Come to find out, he comes and knocks on our door. Comes to find out that Walter Willard Loomis did not live in a brick house. He lived in the house that my husband and I had bought. And he had married Abigail, who was the daughter of, I cannot pull up the name of the person that built the house. She was the daughter of the house that I was living in. And she married Walter Willard, and they were the ones that owned the brickyards that were, and if you go and look there now, you can see there's a deep indentation next to 106 Windsor Avenue. That's where they built that's where they pulled out all the clay, because it's all clay there. That's why we have bricks in this town, is because we have such good clay. And so he was shocked, because it's a 1788 house that Walter Willard Loomis did. And so I ended up with a picture. I think I still might have it, because I got mad at the people that bought my house. And I think I took it with me. But maybe I did leave it there, so I'd have to call them and find out. Of the house when they lived there. And Abigail and Walter Willard are at the gate. So that was interesting. So Windsor Bricks also supplied all of the bricks for the Mark Twain house in Hartford.
And they came out of your backyard?
Mm-hmm.
And there were still houses on Mack Street. Is that or Mack?
Yes, yes, there are houses on Mack Street. Mack brick is all over this town.
My brother lives in one of them.
Just across the street, and that was the family home of. Wasn't it the family home?
No.
Nope, it wasn't the family home.
I can tell a story.
So that's the one you need to. So Colette needs to tell the story on that.
It's very brief, though. It's a very, very brief story.